And good evening, everybody. This is Vinny Maletti with Maletti Law, the strongest name in law. My name is Vinny Maletti. I am the founder, owner, partner, principal, lead, Big Mac Daddy of Maletti Law and the offices of Vincent Maletti. First, before you start, I would like you to click on the subscribe link over there in the channel, in the YouTube channel. This is where you could always be brought up to speed with the latest and most awesome content that we have. Constantly producing things almost daily at this point. So, you know, we always have videos coming up, all kinds of things. As you can see, I don't sleep. I'm also wearing a very similar shirt that I'm wearing yesterday. Today is November 10th. Yesterday was November 9th. You know, we don't sleep here much at Maletti Law. We're always working and plugging away. And also, I would really like you to go to the website, www.malettilaw.com, MILETTILAW.com, malettilaw.com. Sign up for the newsletter so you can constantly, again, be in the know. Emails come out. Content is produced daily on all formats. I mean, we blog, we video, we have pictures, images. I apparently make comics. We got a lot going on all the time. So certainly, you know, be involved and, you know, get emails and see what we got going on all the time. All right, so let's get down to it. So a question came in. This is for the landlords, actually, which I feel like I've been basically, so I started the industry representing management side, representing businesses, right? That's how I originally started. I originally started as a defense attorney. In 2020, obviously chaos ensued in 2020. My life, as well as many other lives, got upside down, and I've done a substantial amount of work for plaintiff side and for an incredibly almost for essentially no money. You know, so you know, plaintiff work, there was a lot of almost like charitable plaintiff work in 2020, and 2021 was no different. So finally we're starting to get back to some level of normalcy, it looks like. So we're doing a lot more defense work on the side now. So conversation comes in. Well, for starters, number one, the name of this video is very clear and straightforward. How to evict a deadbeat tenant in New York. How to evict a deadbeat tenant in New York. And why is this important? This is important because as a result of the pandemic and just basically the never-ending executive orders and the never-ending public crisis, that the scandemic, what it is, we have an endless amount of rules that essentially render landlords powerless. Fortunately, there was a Supreme Court case not too long ago that they stepped in and told, you know, the governor that he wasn't able to do any of this stuff, that, you know, all these things that he's doing with these endless moratoriums on evictions. So the governor came up with an alternative plan that was, we're still going to have these moratoriums, but they have to fight for it now. So, and there's also like a new fund, but let's go down to it real quickly. So, all right, so what's the situation, right? So we have a long-term tenant. Tenant's been around, let's say, sometime before COVID. Let's just say tenant's been around since 2017. Suddenly they stop paying rent during COVID. You know, the landlord thinks that the landlord's going to evict them because they're not paying rent anymore. Then suddenly the endless amounts of COVID regulation comes down. All the moratoriums, all the extensions, all the, you know, eviction restrictions and stuff like this. So the landlord finally says, you know, look, I'm never going to be able to get rid of you. I don't know what to do. I need you to get out. Like, I'm not making any money. You haven't paid in 2 years and I just need you to go. So the landlord goes, so the tenant says, well, I'm unable to find I'm unable to find another place. You know, I've been looking really hard. I can't pay you any rent because, you know, I work off the books and I have no money. I don't work and I have a COVID, but I can't afford anything. So landlord, you're going to have to just not be paying. So, so the landlord at this point is just like really freaking out. You got to go, right? Now the tenant is just amping up the game a little bit and tenant's getting tired of the landlord asking them to leave. So now the tenant runs the water and runs the electrical and doesn't pay that either. So that's a big problem for the landlord, right? So at a bare minimum, the landlord has to evict the tenant at a bare minimum, right? You got to get the tenant out. All right, so what do we do? So how do we do this? All right, so first understand what you're dealing with in New York now, right? So since September 2nd, 2021, there's something known as the Tenant Safe Harbor Act. So now basically all tenants are able to now until like mid-January, which probably will be extended, but from now until mid-January, tenants are allowed to file what's known as a tenant hardship declaration, which essentially is just saying, hey, listen, I have some hardship due to COVID and I need some relief, you know, and I need at least to be eligible for this moratorium until mid-January, and then we can go on after that. Keep in mind that landlord could still accrue back rent. Any monies that are owed by landlord, they can still accrue. The only thing is, the landlord, if there is a tenant hardship declaration, unless the landlord attacks back and says you're lying, and then you have to have a hearing, which will probably be set 8 months out because that's how New York rolls. The tenant can kind of like hold off a little bit, but the landlord could still accrue everything in arrears, and that money could be owed. So anywho, but landlord wants to evict tenant, right? So what do we do? So in light of the new Tenant Safe Harbor Act, how do we do it? So step one, if your tenant is not paying rent, so there's a section 711 in the real property law. You have to serve the tenant with a notice to quit for non-payment of rent. So it's called a notice to quit for non-payment of rent. You serve the tenant with that. They give it 14 days to pay rent. But here's the big thing with this time around for this year. It has to come with you must serve them that notice to quit for non-payment of rent for 14 days. You must serve a tenant hardship declaration with that. And you must also provide them a list of nonprofit legal services that could assist. So you have to provide them with the notice to quit for 14 days. You have to provide them with the hardship declaration. You have to provide them with a list of nonprofit legal services for their particular entities. Assuming the tenant doesn't respond. So if the tenant responds and says that they have suffered this hardship and they need the extra time, they need to apply to moratorium through January, then if you think the tenant is full of crap, you could request a hearing, and you could take it to the court and request a hearing. Note that we have done this in the past, and it has been pushed out for like, in one instance, I think it was still wait. I think they were on calendar for like May. It's been ridiculous. I mean, the courts are just really just not even trying at this point when it comes to this. So whatever, we'll get back that. We'll worry about it all the time. So assume the tenant never responds. The tenant just gets your letter and throws it in the garbage, doesn't really care. What's next? So now you have to file your petition. So when you file your petition, not only do you file the petition for your non-payment of rent, that they're in default, but you also have to file a copy of the notice to quit that was given to the tenant, a copy of the proof of service that notice to quit was served on them. Okay, so typically a form, service processor, or whatever the case is. So a copy of the proof of service on them, a copy of the actual notice to quit, again, a copy of the tenant hardship declaration that you sent to the whole package that you originally sent. You want to put it in this one. And then also you need to file an affidavit from the landlord that they did not receive the tenant hardship declaration. So, all right, so let's just go through this one more time. So step one, serve the tenant with a notice to quit for non-payment of rent. They have 14 days to cure it. Along with that, you have to give them a blank form of a tenant hardship declaration. And you have to give them a list of nonprofit legal services for residential tenants. You could find these on the state website. Don't worry about it. Second option, if they don't respond, second part is you get to file your petition with the court. You file your, you file your summary eviction proceedings, right? So you file the petition. That's number one. You file the notice to quit for non-payment of rent, a copy of what you gave them, along with the proof of service that you served that on them, along with the whole package, right? So it's going to be the proof of service, notice to quit, the tenant hardship declaration that you sent them, the list of nonprofit legal services that you sent them, and then the fourth portion of that is the affidavit from the landlord that the tenant never responded and never provided an executed copy of the tenant's hardship declaration. Okay, so those are the four things you need to file on that second part after a petition. So there isn't, and at that point, you'll have your hearing with the court. The process has been getting longer than necessary. It's just simply because the courts have been just like very backed up. They're at like half capacity at this point. No one's going in. Realistically, you think that, it's all virtual. It's going to be more efficient. It's really not. We used to go to these, excuse me. Sorry. When you used to go to these court hearings, when you used to go to Kings County Court, right? They would literally pack everybody in like one room and just dump you all in there, right? And then you would just sit there all day, and judges would be flowing through hearings, adjournment, blah, 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 blah. You don't have that situation anymore. So it's not that. So now it's really not a more efficient process, but whatever. You have this process now. It's all remote. So it's going to take a while, but, you ultimately get your date in court. They'll wind up getting X amount of days to pay. There is an alternative, though, and I'll leave with this. There is an alternative. So there's something called the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. This was also created this was created and funded at, I want to say, like in very early of October. No, I'm sorry. That program was funded a long time ago. That program was started in September 2021. It was part of the Tenant Safe Harbor Act. It created this this emergency rental assistance program for the tenants. But in October, what was activated was the landlord rental assistance program, which is just what it is. Landlords can actually apply and get their get up to like 150% of their fair market value of the rent of their property. So at least landlords may have some relief. It is a very heavily funded program. I mean, also along with the emergency rental assistance program. So the emergency rental assistance program, it's applied to by the tenant. The landlord rental assistance program is applied to by the landlord, and the landlord is eligible up to 150%. So those are options, those are alternatives, because you might not have the easiest time in the world filing, and you might want to look at some of these alternative methods in order to find a better spot, a better way to get yourself something better in the end. So that's the advice here. It comes with a yawn before. It's late and I'm tired and I work a lot of hours. And I'm going to be another yawn. Like, it's terrible. Horrible. I'm so unprofessional. Why do you use me? Yeah, so moral of this video is, it's hard it's a pain in the butt to evict tenants, but sometimes you have to. 2, you could still evict tenants. You just have to have like proper protocols in place. You have to do a couple of extra steps, because these communists in New York don't want you to ever evict a tenant. They just kind of want you to let people live rent free for the rest of their lives. The court is going to basically just hit you with red tape and put you on late diaries, to just make it stretch out a little bit more than required, but that's what they do. You can still do it. It just takes a little bit longer than usual. There is an emergency rental assistance program and a landlord rental assistance program that are also available options if you don't feel like going through this whole process and you still want to get some quick relief as a landlord. If you're friendly with the tenant, they can do the emergency rental assistance. If the landlord just wants to do it on their own, they can do the landlord rental assistance. So there you go. There you have it. That's your advice. Obviously, if you need us to do anything for you, we certainly can. Just reach out to us at www.monies.com, www.monies.com. You could write something in the comments below, and that's it. So good luck with whatever you're doing. Hopefully this was provided some reasonable guidance and this city gets back to normal at some point, so it can actually function like a normal society again. All right, everybody, have a beautiful night. Yours and Lord's love and lifts. This is Bloody Law, and I am signing off.